Hello and welcome to another full bean tutorial. In this session I'm going to show how I used my Kaldi roaster to roast 300 grams of green coffee. I purchased my coffee online from a variety of sources. Today I'm going to roast some Thailand Albonso green coffee that I purchased from Theta Ridge Coffee. First I weigh out the coffee on a kitchen scale. I've zeroed it out here, and in the next frame you'll see that I'm weighing 300 grams. I prefer to weigh in grams because it's more precise than weighing in ounces. Because coffee roasting can create a lot of smoke, I roast outdoors. I built a shed specifically for coffee roasting that you see here. In the section that follows, I've recorded a video that shows me roasting on the Kaldi roaster. Welcome. I'm going to show you how I roast coffee with my Kaldi roaster. So this is the Kaldi roaster that you see here. Actually, what I bought initially was what you see here. The roaster didn't have a heat source, so I added the heat source in the form of a propane burner that I set in a stainless steel quarter steam tray. The device behind here is a blower that I added so that I could cool off the roasting process if I needed to. I made a box here in which I can plug in the blower and the roasting drum. I can turn them on and off. I could have done the same thing with the drum with the switch that you see here. I have an exhaust fan up above that I'm going to leave off in this video because it makes too much noise, but I will turn on the light. Okay, so I'm going to start the roasting process now. First I'll turn on the propane tank. Then I'm going to start the piezo igniter. This is something that I rigged up. It's designed for igniting a barbecue, but I adapted it to this. So push the button and it starts sparking. And now I'm going to open the needle valve. And it's now ignited. I'll turn on the roasting drum. And I'm going to start a timer over here. This is the hopper. I pour coffee beans in here once it's heated up to about 400 degrees. And it'll take some time for that to take place. I measure the temperature with this temperature probe. The Kaldi roaster originally came with a standard thermometer that fit in this opening, but I didn't find that particularly useful or accurate. So I threaded a brass plug in that same area and then drilled a hole through it into which I can insert a temperature probe that's connected to this meter. A word about measuring temperature. From my perspective, it's not as important to get an absolutely accurate temperature as it is to get a consistent temperature. You want to be able to repeat whatever you did one time another time. So if the measurement is off slightly, it really doesn't matter as long as it's off to the same degree that it was previously. Now nothing's going to happen for quite a while. As I said previously, I've turned off the fan so that it'll be quieter for filming. If I were actually doing a typical roast, I'd have the blower on and you'd hear this. I've measured out 300 grams of green coffee. I purchased the green coffee online from a variety of sources. I'll be listing a variety of resources in the comments page below the video. I roast in grams rather than ounces because it's more precise. So I'll be roasting 300 grams once this gets up to temperature. If I were to roast more than that, the roaster would be overloaded. I'd get inconsistent results. Some of the beans would be roasted darker than others. So we're at 320 degrees. In about a minute we'll be at 400 and I'll dump in the beans. We're coming up on 400 degrees now, so I'm going to remove the stopper and add the beans. In order to get them to drop, I agitate the fryer and the beans go down. Okay. All the beans are in the chamber now. I'm going to start the second step on the timer. And I'm going to turn down the heat because I don't want it to get too hot. It should drop quite a bit just by adding the beans. You can see that the temperature is dropping, cooled by the colder beans that were added. I'll put the stopper back in to keep in the heat. When you roast beans, there are three stages. The initial stage, when the beans are getting up to temperature, first crack, what typically happens around 400 plus degrees, and this sounds like popcorn popping. This is when the beans break through the outer shell, and then finally the last phase is called second crack, and this sounds like Rice Krispies in milk. The temperature has dropped off to 390 degrees now, and it'll build back up slowly, continually rising. In the comments section, you'll see a better image of this graphic here. This shows the various stages of roasting. Depending on the result you're looking for, you'll roast the beans for longer or a shorter period of time. How long you roast depends on the origin of the bean, the dryness of the particular sample that you have, and the degree of the roast that you're looking for. I just reached 400 degrees again. So we should start to hear first crack shortly. Let's take a look at the beans. And as you can see, we're very early in the roast. At 426 degrees, you hear the beginnings of first crack. We're at about 11:30 into the total roast or heat up time of the roaster. Here you can see that the beans are starting to darken. I just turned off actually the propane. The temperature will continue to rise even though I've turned the heat off. If it gets too high, I'll turn on the blower here to keep it from getting any hotter. See the degree of roast at this point. Typically there's a period where you don't hear any sounds of the beans popping between the end of first crack and the beginning of second crack. I'm going to get ready to dump the beans at the end of second crack. So I'm going to dump them when the time comes onto a cookie sheet and then pour them from one bowl to another to help cool them down. I just turned on the blower because the temperature is hotter than I cared for it to be, even though I turned the heat off some time ago. And you're starting to hear second crack now. This is what the beans look like as we're in second crack. And that's as much as I care to roast, so I'm going to turn off the drum, remove the hopper, and then dump the beans, turning the hopper back on. Now I want to quickly cool down the beans. So I'm going to dump them into a bowl. And then pour them from bowl to bowl with another blower on to blow the chaff off. The idea here is that you don't want the beans to stay hot anymore. You want to stop the roasting process. And by pouring them back and forth, I expose them to colder air and cool them off more rapidly. So there's the result of roasting. Ideally, I'll wait several days before I grind these beans and use them for making espresso or cappuccino. Some of the beans I may remove, like this one here, which seems like a bad sample. So that's the way that I use the Kaldi roaster to roast coffee. Thank you for watching.